Well, hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us today for November's listening session. I hope you're doing well. Really appreciate all the questions that came in early. I hear that there are many, as well as those of you that are joining us now. As always, you can ask questions in the chat. Of course, one of these days we'll be back in sessions as they were envisioned, although I feel like now we've had more remote than in person. So it's nice to be back for this monthly session. I learn a lot just from the questions that I get. It gives me a sense of what the public's thinking about since I can't see you in person. This is really helpful. And I hope that our answers are helpful too. I wanted to say just a couple things and teeing us off. We will be talking more about COVID-19 today than we have the last couple months because we got a lot of questions related to that and we have some updates. And then just on that, I want to acknowledge the sacrifices that so many of you have made and to extend my gratitude, particularly to those who are on the front lines, both from a public safety perspective and of course in our hospitals and healthcare providers, keeping us safe, keeping us healthy to the best that they can do. Today, there are just some logistics I want to touch on. That's why I'm going to look at my notes now. First off, we have Lavona Andrews, our sign language interpreter, joining us today. Thanks, and it's great to see you again, Lavona. She's here to help make sure that as many people as possible can access and experience this listening session. Seth Ogilvie, my communications director, is on the call and he'll be facilitating the questions and then some of the logistics. We'll start with Seth going through the questions that he received in advance, and then from there move into live questions as our time allows. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Seth to get us organized and started.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that we'll do our best to get as many questions as possible. For questions that are on a similar topic, I might combine them so we can get to more or paraphrase them. So sometimes your questions won't be verbatim. However, if yours is one of the ones that we don't get to, there is a link in an online form in the YouTube chat that you can submit your question to, and we'll try to get back to you with an answer. Please include your name and your area of town when you submit a question so that the mayor can address you directly. I'll be turning off my camera in between the questions so that you can focus on the mayor and the ASL translator or interpreter, excuse me. Thanks everyone for joining, and we're going to start with a COVID question. We got a lot of them this week. This one comes from Kimberly from Southwest Boise. I'm wondering what you are planning on doing about our rising cases of COVID. Are you going to install a mask mandate, a stay-at-home order? More was being done when it was much less prevalent. I'm worried that you are not doing enough for fear of the reaction from the anti-mask people.
Well, thanks. Was it Kimberly? Kimberly from the Southwest. Thanks for your question. We did take a lot of action in the spring before the virus came to Idaho. I want to address that first. And I think that the governor, in issuing a stay-home order, did the right thing, particularly because at that point, the hospitals didn't have all of the supplies that they needed to be able to meet the demands that would come with a surge if a surge came. And we were learning so much about the virus at that point. I instituted a mask mandate in the city of Boise in early July. It took effect on July 4th. The pushback from anti-maskers is not going to prevent me from doing what I have to do when I have to do it to protect public health. So know that. We're looking at a couple different things right now. We have learned in the year, that or it feels like a year, in the 9 months that we've been working through COVID, that there are things that we can do to protect the public and to protect our health without taking a full, just a wide swipe at shutdown. So from the city's perspective, we're working right now on coming up with a scalpel approach, if you will, to ensuring that businesses that aren't following the protocols are held accountable. And right now there's a central district health, a county health order with protocols related to operations. And we are trying to figure out as a city how we have teeth different from the health district to hold some of these businesses accountable. And later this week, of course it's Wednesday, so likely by tomorrow or Friday, we'll have an announcement with ways that the public can reach out to us, and also the ways that we're going to hold businesses that are choosing not to protect the public accountable. At the same time, we want to partner with businesses that do want to protect the public and enforce those mask mandates as well as other protocols. And so there will be a way for businesses to call us for support when they have customers that aren't following the rules. So rather than shut us all down, we're going to look at sector by sector, operator by operator, to make sure that those that are operating badly aren't. Those that are operating well have the support they need to do that. And that said, you might have seen the health briefing that I had yesterday from healthcare executives. And the numbers in this community do not look good. The numbers in the state do not look good, and that has impact. The statewide issue has impact on our own hospitals here at home. And while we hope that the next steps that we take will get us what we need to see, which is a slowing of the spread. If it doesn't, we'll have to revisit with health experts and see what's next. And just so the public knows, this is a new virus. We're learning new stuff. I feel like in a way, day by day. But the one thing that we know for certain is that masks diminish the rate of spread. Distance between people diminishes the rate of spread. So those two things are incredibly important. And we have to, and some science says that, effectively masking allows businesses to stay open with the same impact of a closure. So, that was research that was out, and there could well be new research that comes out soon that says something different, which we'll take into account, because we are working with health experts, looking at the data, looking at what is known about the virus, and then looking at the tools that we have as a city to enact rules or processes that protect the public. And we'll continue to be focused on that in the days and weeks ahead. And then just one final piece on this is the health experts yesterday were modeling the number of people they expect to see in the hospitals in the next 2 weeks and then a month later, absent any changes, which is why we're looking at changes. It's dire, and it is incredibly important that we each take the steps necessary to protect our families and the public, and then also that we partner with those of you that are doing the right thing to support you in doing that, because it matters so much. And the CEO of St. Al's yesterday said we are so close. We've been at this for 10 months as a community and a country, quite frankly, and a vaccine is on the horizon. And we can't let down our guard and just think that getting the vaccine will solve the problem. But it is so close that if we continue to remain vigilant for just a month or two more, we'll be at that point where we can start to distribute a vaccine throughout the community, and that'll help us. Seth? Great.
Thank you, Mary. Sorry, sometimes it takes a second to get the camera back on.
No, I just want you to know that I thought that I had answered that, and we could move to the next one that you've got for me.
Yeah, and then the next question is also on COVID and kind of on the idea of masks in general. Julie from the Northwest was highlighting Costco as a place that's doing it right. They're requiring all their customers to wear masks, or they're not allowed to shop there. If businesses enforce these requirements, she says that people would wear them. Will you require businesses to enforce this mask mandate in the same way that Costco is?
So Julie, did you say Julie or Jennifer? Julie?
Julie. Sorry.
Julie from Northwest. I appreciate that question, and I really appreciate what Costco is doing. I haven't been in Costco to see the impact, but I was reading about it when they announced it. And because they changed from allowing face shields and having medical reasons not to wear masks to just saying everybody has to wear a mask is, I think, what they announced. And that, I think, was a clear nod to the science right now that shows masks have such an impact. And that's a way for them to protect their employees as well as to protect their customers. Businesses are subject to the mask mandate in the entire county right now. It's not just a city ordinance. We passed this as city mask mandate in July, but several weeks later, the health district that oversees all of Ada County required masks throughout Ada County. And on my last answer, I touched on our desire to partner with businesses that are doing it right and that want to comply with our order, but that have customers that aren't. And so later this week, we will have a way for employees of those businesses to reach out and ask for help in addressing customers that aren't following the rules that they've instituted themselves. If, like Costco, they're more stringent, where they won't allow shields and other things, or just because they want to implement the county mask mandate that we have, and we want to provide businesses in Boise with the support to do that.
Thank you, Mayor. The next question is not on COVID, but it's a question right in your wheelhouse. Patrick from Southwest Boise asks, how do you think Boise can continue to preserve open space and public access, but balance that with sprawl while maintaining affordability? Do you think we will have to make sacrifices in one of these areas?
Thanks for that question, Patrick. It's a great one. I don't think that this is a zero-sum game when it comes to protecting open spaces and ensuring that we have homes that Boiseans can afford. There's no silver bullet to the affordability question, but having homes that are affordable doesn't preclude having open spaces for our residents. And so, yes, we've as a community made clear that foothills preservation is important. Our residents passed in 2001 a levy to enable the city to set aside foothills open spaces. And then again in 2015, residents passed a levy that enables the city to set aside open spaces, not just foothills, and also to protect clean water. And so we have those funds to do that. As we grow, it becomes more and more important that we also think about how we ensure that neighborhoods, as we grow and houses are built out, have open spaces. And that requires us to reimagine what that looks like. I often think of it in terms of neighborhood by neighborhood. How do we ensure that people have a place to go that is outside? We've seen with COVID how important our parks and open spaces are. And so we're looking at how we acquire access and easements to canal pathways so that people can connect from their homes, from pretty much the farmlands to the rivers and up to the foothills. But those open spaces aren't just commuting corridors. They could be open space corridors for our residents. Parks are open spaces. I'm working to ensure that we protect clean water and habitat along the river with that levy. And of course, foothills preservation is important. So we can do all of that while at the same time not losing focus on the importance of having policies that incent affordable housing and programs that make more affordable housing within the community, and then the zones that make it possible to have houses and residences and the numbers that we need as we grow within the city limits that we have, ideally with easy and ready access to open spaces throughout our community.
Thank you, Mayor. The next question actually kind of is on a similar topic. Erica from the the Northeast, and we just got a question in from Deborah, who's also from the Northeast, kind of on a similar topic. They're curious about how the housing bonus ordinance plays in with the zoning code rewrite. And Deborah in particular is saying that, are you aware of any public pushback on the proposed housing bonus ordinance?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Erica, for the question, and Deborah as well. I'm aware of the pushback and we're looking at it. The housing bonus ordinance came out of a conversation that I had with an affordable housing advocate who suggested that we create affordable housing overlays within the city. These are not mandatory requirements for more housing, for affordable housing, but this ordinance, the bonus ordinance, would allow us as a city in particular areas, and that's what we're looking at. Is I really envisioned it along transit corridors to the perimeter of neighborhoods, because the areas would be along transit corridors, would allow us as a city to negotiate, since we can't mandate, for affordable housing. So if somebody came with a proposal for 20 units, are there things that the city could negotiate and allow in these specific areas, ideally along transit corridors, in exchange for 10 to 20% of them being at set affordability rates? That's what we're trying to get at, because we've heard loud and clear from the public that we need affordable housing. That includes protecting affordable housing. So also in that proposed ordinance, there's a piece on either protecting the affordable housing that exists or replacing it. And then again, what we would negotiate in exchange for that. Because we want to make sure that we as a city have tools to increase the amount of housing that comes at affordable rates within the city. So that's the bonus ordinance, which we're still working on. We're reviewing that feedback. We want to make sure that it gets at what I was particularly interested in seeing, and that was something similar to an affordable housing overlay zone that exists in other cities. There's that. And then in general, from an affordability perspective, the question also I think asked about the zoning ordinance. There are different things happening on different timelines. A look at our zoning code with that citizens committee that we selected will allow us to determine what changes are needed to be made. And our goals in that are to ensure that we have the right tools, the right zones in the right places to be able to have housing that we need, because ultimately that will help us provide more affordable housing as our community grows, while also protecting the character of the neighborhoods that we have. And the city has not undergone a zoning review and a zoning rewrite in a long, long time. And so it was important to us that as we start that process, we have a citizens committee to help think through what the process looks like. And that's a multi-year program. And that's why there are things that we need to do in the interim, because our residents really can't wait to have access to housing that's affordable at their budget levels. And so the affordability overlay zone, the bonus ordinance, what we end up with is just one of the things that we're doing, while also doing a longer process to look at the city as a whole and all of our zoning code. We also have some other programs that we've established and are running with right now. Our housing land trust is an important component of our strategy to increase the number of units that are affordable in Boise. We've looked at the assets, the land that the city already has, and then also we look for opportunities to acquire land when it's for sale, and ideally along transit corridors, where we could then partner with builders of homes, and by providing that land in exchange for an RFP where we select different proposals that meet our goals. A perfect example of that is the Franklin and Orchard process that we went through. Selected a proposed plan, and now it's in the process, the entitlement process, to have affordable homes at different price points with mixed use opportunities, as well as integrated into a park at Franklin and Orchard. And we have other sites throughout the city that we're looking to follow that model with as part of our housing land trust. And we're also looking at other incentives beyond the housing bonus ordinance that clarifies what we would negotiate for if a developer was willing to entertain an amount of affordable housing in their proposed development. An incentives program, the funding for which was passed several years ago by council, when I was on the council, that again looks to incent the building of homes at set price points, because we know we need a certain number of houses every year that are affordable at different points. And rather than every 4 years having one large development that's developed for affordability, we need that. But we also want to be able to tick off units as our city continues to grow. So looking at an incentives program alongside the bonus ordinance are ways that we can do that.
Thank you, Mayor. This next question is kind of specific to an individual neighborhood. It comes from Lucy from the Southwest. She is interested in how she might be able to request a crosswalk with crossing flags on Boise Avenue between Old Oak and Eckert Road. The pedestrian stretch of road has become congested with new construction traffic, making for dangerous crossings for the young and the old.
Thank you, Lucy, for that question. I think that you would do that through the highway district, because the Ada County Highway District oversees the streets in the city of Boise as well as the county in general. And so what I would suggest with that, because neighborhoods, both neighborhood neighborhood associations will organize for specific requests, and then citizens can too, and those go through the highway district. So I'd ask that Seth connect you with the right person here in the city of Boise that can help link you to the highway district after this. Hopefully you're on and you can send a message in the chat, or maybe this was a question in advance. If so, if we have your contact information, we'll be able to get the person that you should reach out to at the highway district.
I will try to search down that information and I will get it to her if she had left her contact. This next one is from David from the Northeast End. He was wondering, with everything going on, why can't we just slow down?
David, your question has stumped me. I don't know if you mean as individuals or as a city. So let's think about this. There is a ton of stuff going on. And all of us are indeed struggling to juggle the new way we work during COVID, if we're lucky enough to have kept our job, the economic impact that being closed for a while might have had on our jobs. If we have kids at home, the needs that they have as they try to figure out how to do school in new ways, and particularly those parents or guardians that have young children in the house, it takes so much more. So all of that is a lot, as are, I would say, the challenges that our city and community have to face beyond COVID, whether it be climate, the need to address affordability to support our residents, the recognition that if we want to recover and recover well, there's a lot that we must do to think about what the economy looks like next, make the right investments, and as my economic recovery task force proposed, focus on health, housing, and workforce development. So I would say that we all need to be sure to take care of ourselves as individuals and organizations. But in order to recover and recover well, remaining engaged and making sure that we plan for the future is imperative for the prosperity of our residents and the prosperity of this valley.
Thank you, Mayor. And we're getting close to the end of the questions that were sent in earlier. So get in that chat box if you're on YouTube and send in your questions there. This next one comes from Joe from the Northeast. He wants to know, what does the phrase "welcome to everyone" mean?
Oh, sure. So, well, and I'll talk about it too as our vision of a city for everyone. But welcome to everyone. For Boise, there's a technical definition to that. And then, of course, I have some of my own thoughts on that because we're thinking so deeply about how we ensure we're a city for everyone. But Boise is a designated welcoming city. And that comes from an organization that works with cities and states in the country to welcome refugees and immigrants into our communities. Since the 70s, Boise has been a designated refugee community. And it's interesting if you think about the diversity of our community. Really, what I've found, and I find this fascinating, is that the immigration that occurred, the refugees that arrived and became residents of our city, mirror the conflicts and the history of conflicts of the world since the 70s. And so we have people that have become Boiseans from all over the world, not by choice, but because they had to leave their first homes. And so the city, for the last 40 years, has been actively involved in making sure that we welcome them, that we help them become engaged residents in our own community, and that we create the supports necessary to continue to welcome more. And it was our work historically that's been done as a city that allowed us to be designated a welcoming city. I think it was probably a year or two ago, maybe 2 years ago. And so that's what welcoming to everyone from a welcoming city perspective is, that we have demonstrated a commitment to supporting the organizations that are here to support the individuals that come here, and doing all that we can to provide them with ways to become active, engaged citizens and contribute to the fabric of our community. And then overall, as we talk about creating and ensuring that Boise is a city for everyone, in the work that we're doing from a strategic perspective, that's making sure that we have homes that each and every one of us is able to afford, that we, as we transition to clean energy and look to build out economic opportunity around that, that everyone has access to the opportunity, the benefits of clean energy, the benefits of energy efficiency. And so we have an equity lens. When we're doing tree programs, for instance, President Clegg's tree program, we want to plant trees throughout the city. we're looking to make sure that we're moving trees in areas that have less shade, because again, the trees have impact on the heat, have an impact on energy usage, which has an impact on our pocketbooks, and we want to make sure that everyone benefits from that. When we partner with organizations and the university around workforce development, we want to make sure that we're really creating ways for everyone to engage and ultimately to participate in the benefits that comes with that. And then finally, I'd say we want to make sure as a city that we are reflective of the community that we are. And so we are focused on ensuring that we have a diverse workforce, that we are a welcoming place so that those who are serving the community reflect the community, and that we create ways for everyone to engage effectively and feel as though your voices as citizens are heard in the decisions that we make.
Thank you, Mary. We're getting towards the end, but Eric from the Northwest wanted to know if we could post the questions and the answers from these sessions somewhere to show more transparency.
Do we do that already? Or
I'm not sure if we have them actually like written out and
transcribed, but this remains available, right? So anybody can write. So Eric, these films, it might be something that we could look at in the long run, the transcription process, but this is recorded and it remains posted. So I believe that you can actually look at all the listening sessions that I've had since becoming mayor, with the first one, I think, being in February. Although the February one was in person, so it might be that March was the first one that we've done like this, and they've been all saved and are available on the YouTube channel.
Thank you, Mary. And this might be the second to last because we get a couple more COVID questions that we might want to come back to. But okay. Eric, he didn't say where he's from, but he's interested in creating. What's that, Eric? Yeah. Okay. Eric's interested in creating more inclusive and safe options for people with disabilities to join in the lower foothill trails and parks. The health benefits of being outdoors are very great. Do you have any ideas of how to help folks with disabilities get more engaged in the foothills?
I really appreciate that question. And about a month ago or so, I can't remember now if I was coming out of the trails or just happened to be walking by the trails, but I met a resident who bikes the trails in one of those hand bikes. And he was talking with me about accessibility and ensuring that there are trails that everyone has access to. I think I think of the trails, and this shows because I don't have the same needs. There are trails that I've looked at and thought, oh, well, these are double track trails. Anybody can access them, but there aren't all that many. And so right now we have a committee that's really charged with just looking at parking issues. And I would really like the accessibility committee or community over time to be able to help us reflect on all of the programs we have and where there's room for improvement. And I would suggest, if you're interested in getting involved, a connection with the Parks Department and maybe even the superintendent of Foothills Open Spaces to see if and where there are opportunities to provide more access.
Thank you, Mary. And I think this is going to be our last one because almost all these questions that we have left are on COVID-19. Okay. Jeffrey asks if you're going to do a mask mandate, let me rephrase that. I'll just read it verbatim. I appreciate that you're wanting to enforce the mask mandate, but what are your plans for restaurants where people are allowed to dine without masks? Daniel asks, what is a shutdown, or would that be detailed in your announcement? And Susan asks, do you plan to implement additional mandates to COVID numbers increasing? So a lot of questions, all kind of in the same vein, and they all come from the north and the downtown Boise. Sure.
So later this week, we'll have an announcement on how we will enforce protocols for operations in all businesses, and that includes bars, restaurants, retail, et cetera, how we will enforce the protocols that have to be followed to operate. We have a mask mandate in place. It's been in place since July 4th. So we'll also announce ways that we will support businesses seeking to enforce that mandate in the face of customers that are refusing. So that's what you're likely to see by the later this week, as well as an announcement around city operations, and what and how we provide services, kind of pretty much likely tied to the timing that the school district has looked at, because we're seeing a rise in cases. And we've got to make sure that we have programs in place also to keep our essential employees healthy. We've got to keep keeping people safe through the police and fire department. We've got to keep the runway at the airport clear. We need to make sure that the water renewal plant can always operate, so we have clean, safe water. And so with all of that happening, we've got to have programs in place for the city. And so in addition to the the new order that we'll have that will focus on how we as a city can enforce the protocols in place for businesses, we'll also have information on city services to the public, as well as the recognition that we're trying to build out ways to protect employees that are essential employees. So we have learned over time that, of course, I keep looking at the public health experts, the Central District Health, but we've learned over time that you can take a scalpel approach rather than an axe. And if we can have appropriate usage of masks and space and businesses following protocols, that it can have the impact we need in lieu of closures. But as I said earlier, like, we want to take these first steps, and they've been recommended by hospitals, and so we will have support in doing that. We want to partner with businesses and their representatives that are, that are wanting to get it right. But if this doesn't work and the hospitals and healthcare experts say they need more, we'll have to look at that as well.
Well, thank you very much, Mary. If there's nothing else that you wanted to add, I'd like to thank everyone for putting their questions in. I think it was a great dialogue, and I'll leave it up to you, but I think we can close it down if you're good.
Well, I want to say thanks to everybody who sent in questions early, and those of you that tuned in and asked your questions now. Have a happy Thanksgiving. And I'm going to urge you to think about the safety of your family and others in the next couple of weeks, to partner with us as we build out ways to enforce a mask mandate and business protocols. And to just remember that we've just got a couple more months that we really need to stay focused on this. We will get through this. And at the same time, just reflecting back on David's question, while we're thinking a lot about COVID, we are remaining focused on ensuring that when we come through this, that we recover, that our residents can find places they need to live and can afford, and that we have created the partnerships to sustain economic recovery for opportunity for our residents in the long run. And so there is a lot going on, just as each of you have so much going on, but we need to do this together. And so really appreciate your engagement, your commitment to this community, and look forward to our December session at some point